The Black Barbershop is more like a country club. The people that come in here, they become like family.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. It's a place where you can come to learn different things, about your community, or who you can get to help you do whatever you might need to do.
Barbershops are the cornerstone of neighborhood communication. In the Black community, much like the church, they serve as a place for people to gather, talk, and even engage in activism. Today, we'll explore some of the hidden history of the Black barbershops of Richmond, Virginia. We started the day by heading over to Fleming's Barbershop to learn more about Black barbershop culture.
Well, next month, it'll be my 40th anniversary in here. I started in January 1983.
Why is the Black barbershop so important in the Black community?
It's because it's like a network of people that surround you. Not only do they just come to get a haircut or whatever, shave or whatever, they get information. You might want to build a home. You might need a mechanic. Most barbers know those people because they cut those people's hair.
Mm-hmm. What kind of things get talked about in the barbershop?
Well, they talk politics, religion. Most of all, they love sports. But one thing that you find out as a barber, but you never, ever give advice. Mm-hmm. Because if they go home and get in trouble, the first thing they're gonna say, my barber told me that. Mm-hmm. Now they mad at you and the family.
For many years before and even after the Civil War, Black barbers endured a social stigma for sustaining inequality. Though the profession offered economic mobility to Black entrepreneurs, Black barbers by custom were to serve an exclusively white clientele. This was also the case during Jim Crow, where some barbers exclusively cut only white customers. However, there was a barber in the Fulton neighborhood that found a way to service Black customers. His name was Charles Robinson, a second-generation African-American barber. We visited the Valentine Museum to check out a very cool artifact and learn more about this entrepreneur.
Charles Robinson is actually a second-generation barber here in Richmond. He owned quite a few businesses. In fact, he ran a cleaners in Fulton, he ran the Barbershop, and then later on up on Fulton Hill opened Wayside Grill. His barbershop really originated next to the cleaners, and this barbershop it was really like a one-stop shop, right? So you could certainly get your hair cut, you could get a shave, and then they also had a shower room as well. It primarily served white customers who were working either on the docks or on the railroad nearby. A lot of these gentlemen would come in on a Friday afternoon and get cleaned up, right? So get a shower, get a shave, get a haircut before they went into town for the evening.
The clientele was all white, but he found a way to service African-American Black customers, right?
At that time, right, this is the Jim Crow era in Richmond. He did not want any of his white customers knowing that he was using, the same chair, the same equipment to cut his son's hair. I mean, this really drives home this level of segregation in Richmond, that even though it's a Black-owned business, they should be able to serve their family members really whenever they want, but there was this fear that he would lose business if it was known, that he was cutting the hair of his family members, even on a Sunday. And so he would pull the shades down and cut his son's hair. They remember actually sitting on a board that goes on our barber's chair. So we have that board in the collection when they were too short, right, for the chairs. When we think about today's, sort of gig economy, I do think we should think about the success of the barbershops in this sort of a larger sphere, that he was owning multiple businesses, running a lot of different operations and trying to keep tabs on all of them.
We met up with Charles Robinson's grandson, Charles Robinson III, to learn more about the Fulton neighborhood of Richmond, Virginia, and the Robinson family.
Well, Fulton was this very unique place in that this was the coming of the Black age of, can we make a way out of no way, if you will. First and foremost, there was a deeply entrenched Black business class. My family was a part of that. And I think it was this opportunistic time. And people started to think more, not so much about segregation, but how can I make sure my children will have a better life? So there was this constant emphasis on education and being better than what you thought you were. Probably the thing that really endeared me to that chair was the last year I was living with my grandfather. And he said, I seen you cut hair. And I was like, okay. He goes, I want you to cut my hair. And I'm thinking, I got to cut the master barber's hair. And I did. And he said, you cut my hair from now on. As he aged and, and he passed, I always told my father, and I told all my uncles, I said, I want the chair. And then finally, my cousin Leonard said, Chuck, I got a phone call from the Valentine Museum. They want to know if you would donate the chair to the museum. And I said, absolutely. And I had probably the greatest joy of my life to write the inscription.
Black barbershops in general are so important for the community, right? They're gathering places. They had some freedom in this space in a way that they're not going to have freedom whether they're out on the street or at City Hall or even in their own work situation. And it created these intimate relationships that in many cases lasted for generations.
I'm always reminded of the ideas that can you find a way to make a way out of no way?
Barbershops remain an important part of the African American community. The next time you visit your favorite shop, make sure to build in some time not only for a haircut, but also great conversation, and maybe even learn more about your neighborhood's hidden history.